Hello, welcome to the segment. Hi, ma'am, welcome. Today we have Nandini Guha, associate professor, retired from Delhi University, and we are talking about a plate of white marbles, which she has recently translated from Bani Basu's book. Just spell the book. It's called Shet Pathore Thala, and it was written originally in 1990. So we'll move to Nandini Guha. She'll be talking more about the book. Ma'am, please tell us.
Me to talk about the book. You want me to talk about the book? Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
Well, A Plate of White Marble is my latest translation. And funnily, I began my translation career with the same author. And that was totally by accident. It was a book given to me by Katha to translate for their prize stories. And surprisingly, it actually got the Katha award. So maybe Bani Basu and I have some umbilical cord relationship where I began with her. And then, surprisingly, let me tell you very honestly, I had seen the film first of Chetpat Kala. And when I saw it, I was really overwhelmed with how powerful the story was. And when I went looking for the book, lo and behold, it was written by Bani Basu. So I got actually quite surprised. And I said, maybe I'm fated to have connections with this wonderful author who writes after my heart. So here it is.
Okay.
And I hope everybody likes.
I wanted to ask you, how do you choose a book for translation? Is it the story that piques your interest, or is it the merit of the author, or anything else you would like to talk about?
Uh, I think it's more the book because what I translate is what the author writes, right? Yes, of course, it's talent of the author that she writes so well. But the point is that it's what she writes is what I am working on. So it is what the topic is, what the theme is, how powerfully the story comes across, or how it touches people's hearts. And Bani Basu, especially, has focused a lot on women and their problems, which also interests me a lot. Even other authors, I have translated. Surprisingly, I have never had to choose my books. Yes, but I've always had the
Okay.
freedom to say no. Like if I don't like a book which I'm asked to translate and I don't find any interest in the subject, I say no, right? But the books that I have translated are books that
Yes.
I liked the themes, I liked the way it was written, and luckily I didn't have to find a publisher because the publishers were the ones who asked me to translate these books. So that is how I have translated at least 4 or 5 books and contributed to various collections over the last 15, 20 years. This
Okay.
particular book, as I said, I wanted to translate. It is possibly the only book I really chose. And I talked to, by that time, I knew Vanidhi, so I spoke to her. And of course, she told me that she'd be very happy to give the rights. But she also warned me that the book is not like film. You know, how the film always will dramatize.
Yes.
So, but still, the basic
Yeah.
remains the yeah. So.
And towards the end of the book, you also mentioned that she read the translation. So, what was the experience about? What did she tell you, and how did it all go, the meeting?
Bhumika, I was
Yeah.
scared, really scared, because when an
Yes.
author reads fiction, it can be quite
Hmm.
scary, and I was very anxious.
Hmm.
More so because I'm
Okay.
inform you that Bani might write in Bengali, but she, like me, is a professor
Hmm.
of English. See? So it's like a double whammy when somebody who teaches English, who writes in Bengali, is
Hmm.
going through the translation and editing.
Yes.
But I think
Your voice is not very clear.
I'm honored
Hello.
that as an author, she took out time, read their manuscript,
Hello.
edit whatever was needed to, and give it back to the publisher. I'm honored.
Ma'am, could you read the last bit because there was a glitch in the network?
Okay. Basically, I said that I was very anxious sending the manuscript to her, but I said she is a professor of English. She writes in Bengali, but she's a
Hmm.
professor of English, just like me. And I
Yes.
was going through all kinds of nervousness, but but I feel
Hmm.
honored at the end of it all that she
Absolutely.
actually looked through the whole translation and finally sent it back to the publishers with her approval. So,
Okay. Sure. So, ma'am, could you talk about the creative possibilities of two language here, case English and Bengali coming together? If you could tell us more about that.
see, famous quote which says, lost in translation. Yeah. A lot of things are lost in translation, and you have to admit that there are certain nuances, certain idioms, certain culture specific words which actually are untranslatable. Okay. So, therefore, it's up to the translator to incorporate certain words. Like I try, I'm not a person who likes the glossary problem, constantly having to refer to a glossary. I think kind of takes
Yeah.
away, but sometimes it's necessary, as you can see in this book. But what I try to do is I try to incorporate some of the meanings. I give the word, the Bengali, like in my case, Bengali word, and I incorporate the meaning into the text so that the reader doesn't necessarily have to go to a dictionary or a glossary or whatever. So I try to do that, and I feel that it makes the text also that much more authentic. We as students of literature have read books in English, which always had French, Italian, and God knows what other European languages being quoted. So I don't know why we should not do the same with our own Indian languages. And I also feel that when we translate, we actually transcreate. There is a creation here. We are creating
Yes.
a kind of new language when we translate from one language to another. Okay. The other thing about translation is you have to be very, very careful to be truthful to the text because, after all, you're not the author. You do not have the right to change a text, isn't it? Only the author can change it, not the translator. So, therefore, while being truthful to the text, what else does one do? One has to be able to bring in the thoughts, the moods, the attitude, and exactly what was the author trying to say. It is not a one one translation.
Hmm.
One word for one word, because then
Yeah.
it
Read
becomes
like at all advantage.
yeah. Yes, Bhumika.
So I was saying that this book doesn't read like translation. This book I have, it's inverted book. So it doesn't read like
Bhumika,
translation. This is the book for the audience.
Bhumika, you have given me the
Yeah.
biggest compliment ever. If my translation does not read like a translation, then I feel very, very happy, because that's the whole point. I don't want people to read something and say, oh my God, They read it and write, you, Bhumika,
Like
you can't read Bengali. But
yeah,
when you read the book, you thought you
unfortunately.
were,
So yes,
I
it's
can't
like
hear you, Bhumika.
the flows as well. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I'm
No,
saying
I
that
can't,
it
Bhumika.
didn't read like a translation at all. Uh, I'll
I'm
just.
about that.
Would you like
Can
to
you
read
hear me?
something from the book? If the book is with you, yeah, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
why not? I think it'll be nice. I'll just take out something
Yeah.
to get an essence of what the story is. I'm going to
Yes.
this is one question which impressed me, in the entire book. It's a question, Bhumika, which there is no answer to. Okay. And Bani Basu actually brings out that question, which the heroine, Bandana, actually wants to know. And of course, there is no answer. And I'm going to read the passages.
Hmm.
He says, like a stroke of lightning, it suddenly came to her that even her mother and aunt in law did not eat their meals with her. That means they were eating every. So was Abhimanyu's death only her loss to grieve, not her mother in law's? If a widowed woman is expected to lose taste for food in her sorrow, a sonless mother should also be subject to the same predicament, right? And why just the mother? What about the father? Did the father love his son any less? Kashinath Babu doted on his Kota. He never did anything without first consulting him. The son, too, was very devoted to his parents. And yet, his father was also not changing any of his habits. There were no regrets either. Yet, here, he talks about, she says, how was a widower's sorrow any less? She's posing the question that suppose it hadn't been Abhimanyu and it had been me who had, then what would Abhimanyu have done? And she says, would he feel the same heartbreaking pain and trauma? Would there be a vegetarian
Hmm.
kitchen for him? A separate arrangement, a separate provision? So, Basu Banidhi is asking a very, very important question. I don't know how people
Yeah.
have been able to answer this. And becomes a widow. All the
Hmm.
superstitions, all the norms, all the rules and regulations are only for her. This question that, am I the only
Yeah.
one who's lost some? Hasn't a father lost his
Hmm.
son? Hasn't a mother lost her son?
Hmm.
Hasn't a son lost his father? Sisters have lost their brother, But nobody is following
Everyone.
any such, only the widow.
Hmm.
And I don't think till
Yeah.
today there are any others, you know. So I think what Bani Basu has done in this novel is seminal. She's asking questions
Hmm.
which nobody can answer because our society, unfortunately, doesn't change. And I'll tell you very honestly, our traditions, our culture, our rituals are so deeply embedded in us that
Hmm.
we automatically follow them. When I was widowed 20 years ago, do you know that I stopped wearing the color red? I stopped wearing it. I mean, and nobody told me to do it, by the way. No one asked me to do it. But it's embedded in us that a widow doesn't dress up, a widow doesn't wear colorful clothes, etc. I don't know when our mindsets are going to change. Today, I've been
Yeah.
scolded into wearing, slightly brighter colors, but I too, even today, I can't wear a red bin. I don't know why, but it's just there. So,
This book
anything
is
else,
also
Bhumika,
felt
you
like
want to do?
yeah.
Yeah?
So I'm saying
Can't
like
hear
this
you,
book
Bhumika.
also felt like in women empowerment in a way because it shows the
Yes?
journey of Bandhan. And then she asks her uncle to tell her the ways how to be strong and how to learn new things. And then she finally arrives to the decision that she doesn't need anyone after when the son parts away. So it's like a smooth journey, and it's a crash
It
course of a roadmap that opens a
absolutely.
roadmap.
That is amazing. I Yes. And the amazing part is that the two books of Bani Basu that I have translated both
Yes.
actually end in a similar way with women empowerment, where the
Okay.
woman does not require the man at all.
Yeah.
Even the One Dark Afternoon, I got the award. If you read that, you'll find there too
We will now
the
definitely.
woman who is treated so badly by her husband. He has an affair and does all kinds of things. He treats her very, very badly. He betrays her. And yet, she doesn't look for another husband, though she says that I'm open to it after
Hmm.
all I've got the rest of my life. But at that point of time, she would
Hmm.
rather work with Plato.
Hmm.
Vandana does exactly the same. But thanks to her son, she's unable to take it up. And
Right.
even he shamelessly tells her, now you can marry because, now I'm getting married. She says, sorry, I cannot do that. I will only, you know,
Hmm.
I now don't need anybody. And the last line of the novel is phenomenal because her sister in law says, you're going to be traveling, doing all your social work all over the place. You've never stepped out of even Calcutta or Delhi. And she says, I don't need anybody
Yeah.
anymore. Like, she
Hmm.
doesn't need any support. She is
Hmm.
self sufficient. She is able to stand on her 2 feet. She's confident enough to face the world and do what she wants to, right? So definitely women empowerment, definitely.
Hmm. Could you also give us a sense of little bit about Basu personalities? We talk about that.
Uh, you need to repeat that, Bhumika. I can't hear you.
Could you give us a sense of Bani Basu's personality? Because you have been fortunate enough to work
Uh,
with her.
Actually, I met Bani Basu the first time at the award function for Katha, where she got the prize for the best Bangla fiction for that year, and I got it for the translation. It was wonderful meeting her because I had translated the book without meeting her at all. Then I have, she is quite elderly right now, but she's still carrying on writing. She's now one of the top fiction writers in Bengal. And amazingly, because she's been a professor of English, she has translated from Bangla to English, and she has translated Somerset Maugham and goodness, authors that we wouldn't even think of doing. So she is obviously not only an academic, but she is a prolific writer. She writes very well. And what is beautiful about her writing, that it's not just a simple narrative. There is so much of symbolism in it, so much of lyricism in it. She's able to give you images
Yeah.
which stay with you, for even after the book is. Those images don't leave. So that is a special kind of a personality who can bring out such images.
Yes.
So
Even
that
you, like,
is
you have yeah, you translated Taslima Nasreen's biography as well, and Anita Agnihotri's Awakening. So, and you've been
yeah.
awarded with the award. Could you tell us, like, when and how did you start that you will be translating now to venture into this field altogether?
Should I tell you the truth? It's my
Yeah.
children. My children cannot read Bengali, they cannot write Bengali because they've been brought up outside Bengal all their lives. Whenever, and I was always a voracious reader, and that's how I self-taught myself Bengali. So when I used to read anything which I found really wonderful, my first thought was, my children can't read it. And I think that is what motivated me into translating, because I felt that this is a way to make them learn how much rich Bengali literature there is, which they are unable to
Hmm.
read. And not just my children,
Hmm.
there are generations of Bengalis who cannot read their own language, they can't write. So, not only for
Hmm.
them, but for
Hmm.
all, we have so
Hmm.
many languages in our country, they can't read either, you know. So therefore, for them,
Hmm.
for a wider
Yes.
audience, Bengali literature is so,
Hmm.
and I'll tell you a little incident. Right
Hmm.
now, I'm translating short stories by an 85-year-old lady called Chandana Datta, who has written plentiful.
Okay.
She's written in magazines, she's written collections, and at the age of 85, do you know what happened to her? She suddenly realized that her children who live in America, her grandchildren who've been born and brought up over there, they will never know that their grandmother was a
Hmm.
writer. Imagine? She says, I suddenly realized that, oh my God,
Hmm.
I've been writing all my life, but my own children and grandchildren will
Unfortunately.
never know that because they can't read. So she has asked me to do
Yes.
that job for her. And she says, at least before I die, I mean, it sounded awful, but she said, before I die, I would like my grandchildren to read my stories. And I'm getting, I'm feeling really good about that because I started translating for exactly the same reason, that there are, stories which are so rich, so powerful, and my own children can't read. So that's how I started,
Hmm.
actually.
So, moving from one author to another, multiple authors, multiple translations, a sense of that as well.
It is tough, very tough. Actually, I've been lucky that, since I've been teaching full time, when I take up translation projects, I do one at a time. It's not like that. Right now, actually, I'm facing this problem of multitasking and do things at the same time. I don't like doing it. It's difficult to switch on and off. And with Taslima Nazreen and Anita Agnihotri, such a contrast in authors, in writing styles. It's extremely difficult. So I am happy that
Hmm.
I was able to finish one project, switch off from that,
Hmm.
and go into the other author
Hmm.
because the
Hmm.
styles, the theme, everything was different. Everything was different.
Hmm.
So it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But well, it's good to know can do it. Yeah.
Great. Sure. And I was also curious about knowing the self-editing part in translations. How difficult, how taxing that is,
You
and
know,
what are the challenges you encounter?
huge challenges. Basically because sometimes you have to change the language complete. I mean, in the sense, the construction of a particular sentence, you have to change it completely. Sometimes to get in the meaning and the thought, you have to rewrite, as I said, transcreate. And then you have to be very careful that you haven't left out something important. And that is when your editing skills come in, right? And self editing, let me tell you, is the most tough thing on earth, because when you are writing, you think whatever you've written is the
Yeah.
best, but it's not so, right? So you have to be
Yes.
very critical. And frankly speaking, I think external editors are much better than self editors, because it is a little
Hmm.
difficult to, edit your own
Hmm.
material, whatever you're writing. So then I have self
Hmm.
edited. Actually, the amount of times you read the text, to read the text multiple times. You not only read it as an eye opener to read the text, while you're translating, every line, every paragraph you are reading, rereading. And actually, from my childhood, I've had this huge interest in words. In my child, even today, puzzles, word puzzles, Scrabble, and crosswords. And in our childhood, it's I'm sure much before you were born, there was Sabira Merchant who used to this show called What's the Good Word? And I love those kind of exercises. My daughter will tell you that even this afternoon, she sent a quiz and I couldn't resist, trying to solve it. So words have been a huge passion for me. So for me, every translation is an adventure. Can I find the
Hmm.
right word? Will I be able to transcreate exactly what the author wanted to say? Because that I think is the most important. You have to be able to bring out the essence of what an author meant when he was writing. Because otherwise, you are not being true to the author. And as a translator, I think it's very, very important.
Hmm. So I'll end with one more question. That would be the last question. It would be about people who are looking to be translators. What are the points that they should keep in mind? You have largely talked about bringing the essence out, but uh, if you could recommend any reading materials to prep themselves up, or anything would if you would like to suggest to them.
Bhumika, I'll be very honest. You cannot, I mean, there may be translation workshops where you can, take part. I myself, was part of this translation, international translation workshop at Jawaharlal Nehru University just 2 years ago, where all of us translated, from different languages. And you're going to be very amused, but the short story that I found, it was focusing on disability in translation. Okay, any literature which had focus on disability, whether it was, mental, whether it was physical, whatever it was. Will you believe it that I went through at least 15 or 16 short stories, and the one that I chose finally was also by Bani Basu. I'm telling you, there is something between me and Bani which, I mean, attracts me to her stories. And so, in fact, that will be coming out. I think Bloomsbury is bringing it out next year. This collection in which my story will be. You must read it. That's again a very powerful story. So, what I'd like to tell people who want to translate is that you have to practice. You know, nobody can teach you. Nobody can teach you. You have to work your own self, improve your own skills. Yes, there are some technicalities, etc., that you have to follow, but the actual, what I'm trying to say, is essence can only come through your understanding of that text, and that nobody can teach you. Nobody.
Hmm.
You have to be able
Hmm.
to practice different texts, see how you're able to bring out that essence. Let me tell you, as we always say, practice makes perfect. Even if it's baking a cake, the more cakes you bake, the better they are. So even a
Hmm.
translation, the more practice,
Hmm.
the more you translate different texts, that
Hmm.
is your best way to how to translate correctly.
So I'll be ending this talk, though I want to ask so much, but and learn so much. But due to the time limit, we'll be ending this. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a really enriching talk, and it's completely my pleasure to talk to you. And looking forward to read more of your translated works. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Bhumika, and I must thank Neogi Books for bringing this book out. They've made my day, even in the middle of a pandemic. To have published the book,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to them. Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you, Bhumika. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.